When it comes to training for running, there are primarily two methods you can follow with your training. You can either train based on time or you can train based on mileage. I'm currently training for the Marine Corps Half Marathon in May, and right now I'm following a training plan that is a mileage-based training plan. But at the end of last year, when I was training for the Philadelphia Marathon, I actually followed a training plan that was a time-based training plan. So today I want to make a quick video going over the pros and cons of both time-based training versus mileage-based training, and also provide what I prefer when it comes to training for a big race like a half marathon or a marathon. So let's get to it. All right, before I get into the video, I want to do a quick run streak update. Today is day 64 of the run streak. It is a scheduled rest day in the training plan, which means it's an easy 3-mile recovery run. So I'm looking at like a 9:30 to 10-minute mile pace for this recovery run. So the first pro for time-based training is that it is a really convenient training plan for people who are really busy. So for me, I work a 9 to 5. I have 2 really young kids. My daughter was actually born last year, which is partly why I did the time-based training for Philadelphia. It made it a lot easier for me and my family and my work schedule and everything else to know I only had to run a set amount of time every single day instead of a set amount of mileage. With time-based running, no matter how fast or how slow I ran, I knew I was only going to be out for whatever that set amount of time was. It was easier for my wife, like I said, with a new baby. It was a lot easier for her to be like, okay, well, how long are you going to be gone today? And I could say 60 minutes. Whereas when I say 8 miles, I have no idea how long that could be. So time-based training is really convenient if you're extremely busy, but you still want to get a run in, which leads to the first con. Mile-based training is a lot harder to be predictable with because you just don't know how fast you're going to be able to run a set mileage that you have for the day. So there's more of a time commitment when it comes to mile-based running, or you're just forced to run faster to squeeze that mile-based run into your day, whatever that planned run is. And honestly, I've already had that happen to me a few times in my base building leading up to this training block. There were a few days where I had 8 to 10 miles scheduled, but because of work and other things, I was forced to have to run the planned training run faster than I wanted to, just because I needed to fit it in to a certain window to make sure I hit my mileage for the day. Just hit mile 1, 9:51. Now, a pro for mileage-based training is the fact that you know all of the metrics before you even start the training. You know exactly how many miles you're gonna be running every single day, every single week, every single month leading up to your big race. And for someone like me, I prefer knowing exactly what I'm gonna be running instead of not really knowing how far I'm gonna be able to run in a scheduled amount of time. So a pro is just knowing all of those metrics, being able to see in that linear mileage progression as you're training for a big race, and knowing that you're going to be able to, albeit not getting injured or anything like that, that you're gonna be able to get in the volume you believe is necessary to actually perform well on race day, especially if you're looking at doing a PB or hitting some type of goal in your big race. Which leads me into the con for time-based running. The one thing I did not like about time-based running was that unpredictability of how many miles I was gonna run every time I did a time-based run. So 60 minutes, it might be 7.5, it might be 8.5, who knows? The other thing that was actually really hard with time-based running, that was even more of an inconvenience, I could almost never do a route that was like a loop of some sort. It always had to be an out and back. And so that was a huge inconvenience, was that I always had to do out and backs of like 30 minutes out, 30 minutes back. And that's not always gonna be something that's easy to do. And then also having to be limited in the types of routes I could do to make sure that I wasn't out in the middle of nowhere, having finished my 60 minutes, but still like a mile away from home. So another pro for time-based training is that it removes some of that performance pressure that can come with mileage-based training. So I had talked about days where I was super busy and needed to somehow fit like a 10-mile run into, let's say, an hour and 10 minutes. And like, there's no way I'm gonna do that without having to like run really fast, and maybe that's not what's scheduled for the day. With time-based running, I had the ability to listen to my body and know that no matter how I was feeling on any which day, I only had to be out for 60 minutes. So again, going back to that busy schedule, it was nice knowing that, okay, I can take it easy today because I'm not feeling it, and I know I'll be back in time for work or a family event or whatever that case may be. So it was nice, again, having that convenience, kind of removing some of that pressure to always perform, because all I had to do was run for the set amount of time that was scheduled for the day. Which just leads me to the con of mileage-based training. There's gonna be days that you're just not feeling it, and you're gonna have something scheduled that is just not gonna be a fun day. And so with mileage-based running, that can be a con, because then you're put in this weird position where, do I cut my run short to help recover, or do I get the mileage in that I need to at a slower pace than maybe I want to try and get to that mileage I need to for whatever goal race I have in mind. And so, like I said, with time-based running, that kind of is taken out of the equation, and you don't have to make that tough decision that you would have to make with mileage-based running. Just hit mile 2, 10:15. All right, and the final pro for mileage-based running is that it helps you mentally prepare for race day. Now, when it comes to a goal race that you're running, no matter what the distance, mileage-based running helps get you prepared for that race, because a race doesn't end at a specific time. You don't just end your marathon at 3 or 4 hours. You got to run the full 26.2 miles or 42 kilometers. Doing a mileage-based training plan just starts to help mentally prepare you for having to run the full distance, no matter what time it takes you to cover that distance, which is probably one of the biggest cons when it comes to time-based training. You don't just stop your race because you hit a specific time. And even in the time-based training that I was doing, the long runs eventually turned into mile-based long runs. So near the end of my training, I had to do 22 miles for the long run. I was no longer doing, I'll run for 2 hours. I had to do actual mileage-based long runs. And again, I think it's primarily because the only way to truly prepare your body for the distance you're gonna run is running based on an actual mileage distance, not just a time. So before I get into which style of training I prefer, I do want to say that I do not believe one is better than the other. Each has its pros and cons, like I've already said, but each has its benefits based on where you are in life, your running experience. Like, there's so much that goes into whether you should do time-based running or mileage-based running. And sometimes it can just come down to whatever sounds most interesting or fun to you, because you always want to make sure that running or exercise in general just stays fun and never feels like a job. So with that being said, I do prefer mileage-based running, primarily because of where I'm at in my running journey and what goals I want to achieve. I like being able to know the exact volume I'm going to be putting in every single week as I lead up to those goals, so that sub 120 in the half marathon. I enjoyed doing the time-based running for the Philadelphia Marathon, but it was really more of a place I was at in my life with a new baby, where I couldn't be putting in crazy mileage, and it worked better for me to know exactly how long I would be gone every single day. Things have changed now. The baby's a little older, so now I can go back to putting in that mileage based effort where I'm not so worried about how long I'm out, and I can make sure I'm getting that proper volume in to make sure that I'm well prepared when I show up on race day. And with that, day 64 of the run streak is complete. I did 3.01 miles with a 10:11 minute mile average.